although I believe it's going to break tomorrow and it's going to rain, but that's absolutely fine because I'm sure we'll all be inside drawing and painting and doing nice creative things. I thought we'd put a little bit of a twist on tonight. So I know that we mainly teach around drawing with pens and pencils, really simplistic materials, but I wanted to introduce you to some materials that we can find in nature and also some mark making stuff using some paints too. So I'll show you my setup in a minute. But I think tonight's really all about exploring those textures that we find in nature and how we can actually replicate that really simply and easily, and also free if you find the right twigs and sticks that can be found knocking about. But just a warning, just make sure that where you're looking that you're safe when you're foraging for things that you could draw with. And I'm going to show you my setup. Okay, so let's turn this around. So here is my desk. So I've just got a couple of pots and I'm going to mix some watercolours to put in these later. Let's just move these out of the way. I've got a variety of twigs and sticks, so nice little skinny ones, some chunky ones that will make some interesting marks, some weird shapes. And again, just these were found on the floor. I've not gone too far for them either, just in the garden, but nice different sizes, different varieties, and that will really help you when you are exploring mark making. You tend to make a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. I've also got some nice little shaped leaves and some wildflowers that I found in the garden. This is from a sycamore tree, lovely leaf, and we've got some from a chamomile tree. And again, just them from wildflowers. So I just thought that these be interesting for us to actually draw tonight, and I'm going to show you how we can make some really cool techniques that looks like you've been studying for ages. I've also got 3 different shades of paper tonight, which I normally draw on a white book. I've got black, white, and I've got a lovely mid-tone, a little tan colour. So if you haven't got any of these materials and you start thinking, oh, I can't do this session, that's okay, because you can still draw along with me. And you can still make marks. Maybe it might be that you've got some things knocking about the house or in front of you that you could draw with. For the watercolours, I've got this really well-loved, well-used little travel palette. It's got a nice little tag on so you can hold it, and it's obviously well loved and well used. So what I'm going to do first of all is just mix some nice neutral colours. So neutral is something that is greys, browns, that type of shade really. So I'm just going to dip straight into some colour, and again, if you've not got this, that's fine, you can skip this step. So I'm just going to put some brown, start off. I've already got this sort of darkish brown colour, so I really want to make something with a little bit more of a grey tinge or a darker tinge. And what you want to do is just fill that up a little bit with water, so you create almost like an ink. And this is a really good way to not spend all your money on ink, which can be very expensive. So just some watercolour, mix that right down so it's nice and liquidy. So there's lots of water in there. So I've made a dark colour, a brown, and I'm actually going to go for quite a dark blue, just to mix it up a little bit. So just explore, mixing along. You can put anything into yours, as long as they're quite neutral, so greys, browns. And there's different sort of shades of grey. So you can have a blue grey, a green grey. I'm going to make this nice little blue grey. And again, I'm just going to add a little bit of water into that. A nice light colour. Quite like that colour. And so we're just going to dig into it really. So in front of me, I've got a few leaves, and I'm going to just move these out of the way so you can see this one that we'll start with. Okie dokie. And you can use anything if you've got something in the house, or you've already been foraging, that's great. And I'm just going to take one of my sticks. I'm really interested to see what types of marks this one makes. Or if you haven't got that, then use your pencil and you can actually draw the shape of this. So what I'm doing is I'm just dipping it in, covering the tip, and I'm going to use this to draw with. And it's interesting because these will make so many different shapes that you wouldn't be able to make with an ordinary paintbrush. And again, absolutely free, which is what we love. I'm just tracing this round, nice and light. And if you was with us last week, you'll remember our observation techniques, observing. So you're actually looking at the leaves more than you're looking at your actual page, trying to get the shapes correct. Nice and slow and steady lines. That's what we want to see. I can't actually believe that that was last week. It's gone so fast. And again, just add. You might want to keep reapplying and dipping into the colour, but we're just using this as a little tool. And if you do have watercolours and a pencil, you can just dip the bottom into that and see what that's like to draw. Nice and thick. So we're just exploring here at the moment. There's no pressure whatsoever on any of this that you do. Just really have fun with it and concentrate on what types of marks these will make. So what you might want to do is when you've done a drawing of something, you might want to try and see what marks you can make. So if you dip it into your ink that we've made or the watercolour, you can use as well acrylic paint for this and water it down. Gouache works really well. Watercolour as I'm using here, or you can actually use ink. They come in the little pots from Winsor and Newton. They're quite good. And you can use any of these. Oh, they make some dreadful noises. I have to get used to. Again, just keep dipping it in and see what marks that we can make. Turn it to its side. See if you can draw the outline. So it's lovely, it's made split the line for us here, which is really interesting. Quite a nice thick side to it, or a really thin point. I think this is one of my my favourite little contender so far. There's a few lines together. So if you feel as well that you're going along with your colours and you might want to change that or make it a bit darker, and just add some more watercolours or paint to your water mix. What's really nice is when it gets quite dry as well, looking and seeing what marks they make. So they'll make totally different marks to when you first dip it in. So I'm just going to leave this for here, this one, and I'm going to use this nice neutral coloured paper, this tan paper. I'm going to try a new tool. So this is just a little bit of a twig. I think it's from a buddleia tree. I'm sure one of the pigeons knocked it off. So I'm just going to actually just play with the lines this time and just see what it can create. And turn it around the side. And the lovely, nice jagged marks. Oh, I like that. So there's a thick line and a thin line. And again, you can't actually buy this in terms of getting a paintbrush. You know, this is a lovely way to create a new mark or a new technique. And if you remember last time, we did short scraping strokes. Now he's defining the middle of our flower. quite nice for a landscape. Okay, so I'm getting quite familiar with this tool. I'm going to tackle another leaf, I think. But I'm thinking, because this is a mid-tone paper, I'm going to add a little bit more colour into this so it shows up more, but keep it as that blue-grey. So again, just mix in some nice ultramarine into some black, just to lift that colour slightly. Make it a little bit darker. Let's test this. Yeah, that's much better. So we're going to grab another leaf and we're going to use this to create the marks. Hopefully you can see that there. Yeah, great. And it's such a great time of the year because everything's flowering now. Even from last week, even from yesterday, things are growing so rapidly. So we're going to look at this shape using the wrong tool. We're going to look at this shape and we're going to drag it nice and slowly down. And that's okay if bits break off and stay on the page. You can even maybe fill in some of the area. Just add a little bit more colour. And when your paint is wet and you add pressure, it'll give you this detail underneath, this darker line, which is really nice, and that happens on any paper. And use watercolour. There's just something about working with natural materials, you're not really sure what it's going to do. Well back. Just add some background colour. And just explore, be free. Think about the different ways in which you could apply it. Might even go for something quite thin. And what detail this adds. Quite nice. You know, all these materials, as I say, are free and can be found anywhere really. It's just such a joy to find something and make another purpose for it. And as well, what you may like to do is to just dip in straight from your palette. So it's always a good idea if you're using watercolours to wet them first anyway, just to get that colour going. And if you've not got a fine twig like this, you could always use a toothpick. I wonder what else you can think of that you could use around the house. I'm just going to follow these shapes. I'm liking this little twig. Keep having your little details. Cool. Fabulous. So this cowslip is a lovely little plant, and it's flowered everywhere at the moment in the garden. And this is a great one to draw and look at the negative shapes and the shapes in between. And hopefully you can see that. If you can't see that too well, I've actually got image for you here too. So that might be a little bit better if you're drawing along. So this is what it looks like out in the garden. This is totally taken over. So I think I'm gonna, now I've explored, I mean, I still love these neutral colours on the white paper, how fresh that is. Really like putting it down thick with the bigger stick and then adding some detail over it, but you'll find your own methods, as I say. So I'll lay that back down there and see what you prefer. And this is all really about playing around, finding what you like, what it looks like. It's got a little fly there. So I'm going to start off by just really sketching out this little one, what I can see. And I like it how it runs out of paint as well, and it becomes quite scratchy. And these little books are really good as well, that have got multicolored bits of paper in, because you can really have a look and see whether it's going to suit what you want to do before you invest in something bigger. I think they're about 50p. That little crunch as it goes over the page. You might find yourself caught out in a field without your paintbrush. Well, now you'll know what to do. Just adding in some detail. And don't forget our technique if you do want to capture the shape, to actually draw that in first. This was from our first session. If you've not watched that, please go and have a look. It might really help you to draw some natural wildlife and flowers. Just going to calm this down. I don't actually know if you can hear the starlings outside as well. I'll just have little chicks. I'm hungry, it must be tea time. So again, I'm just using my tool. If you've not got a stick, don't forget you can use the bottom of a pencil or even the top of a pencil or a pen, anything really unconventional to draw with, but something you wouldn't normally. Just going to add in some detail. And as I'm going, I'm processing it and I'm learning, I'm thinking, okay, so that's what happens if I put quite a lot of water. That's what happens if I have quite a lot of paint to it. It's real sort of free lines that you, to say, you can't really get with a paintbrush. You know, you can do this session and then go away and explore and find new things that you would like to draw with. And if you haven't got any ink or you haven't got any paints, a really interesting thing to draw or paint is tea and coffee. So coffee is a great, you leave it quite thick in the water. It'd be a really good way to use that instead of ink, a good substitute. Smells good too. Go off there, capture these little leaves. So again, just using these neutral colours. But you know, if you're feeling bright and you think I'm all about the rainbow colours today, then you do what you feel. I love neutral colours because it just always feels like the beginning of a painting. I'm not too worried about the colours, so just really focusing on the shapes that I can see just makes it a little bit easier for me and takes the pressure off. It's my own personal choice, I think. I don't remember anybody ever telling me to do that. I think it's just always helped. Becoming a really dainty little. And so the smaller the detail, I think what's helping me is using less water. And I always try when I'm drawing to have lots of different marks, so the really faint marks, thin marks, so there's a real variety on the page. It just makes it look so much more interesting. Imagine some of these details. Kind of learn the pressure, and it's brand new. It's exciting. Might explore with this thicker stick and see what comes through. Might replicate it down here. So that's really difficult. I think that would be far too thick to draw it as it is, but these are interesting shapes too. And if we think of this drawing experience as, you know, a learning curve, nothing can really go wrong. It's just exploring, experimenting. You're more likely to take a big risk that could pay off. I like the bigger one. Makes me draw a lot freer. And the other thing is, you know, if you've got a really big stick, where are you holding it? You know, are you holding it like a pencil, or what about if we hold it right at the tip and see what that does? So it should make us quite loose. So anybody drawing as well, I would definitely advise you to do that. There's our next one. So we'll keep on this image, and let's try, if it's your pencil, hold it at the top where the eraser would normally be, and let's see how we can control this with our new tools. Again, if you find yourself working, you know, so strictly, then have a go at this to free you up. I'm going to hold it right at the top. And I'm just going for this section here, this flower. If you want to use your guide, don't forget you can use that. It's quite difficult to control, but it's interesting because it's making shapes that I wouldn't normally. And I love how that started off pretty dark and then it just slowly ran out of paint. This is so challenging. Great, I love it. Sometimes when you draw all the time, quite regularly, it's easy to get stuck into the same ways and not really change up your work that much. So it's great to be able to push your own style. So again, I'm just holding it right at the top. So I've lost some of that control, which is great. It's making it look freer. A lot less controlled. And I suppose I've given you quite a difficult one to do, you know, this dainty little flowers. But if we just focus on the shapes on the outside rather than trying to add in all the little detail, you're going to find it a lot easier. Oh, good. Stick again. And it might be that you want to layer some of the colour in. So you might want to do it nice and light, or even let the stick run out of paint and go from there. Like this. It's so difficult drawing with a little tip. It's a nice scratchy texture to it when it runs out of paint too. And the darker the colour, the more it'll stand in the foreground. The lighter the colour, the less detail that you will maybe need. So it'll look like it's behind the original image. Okay, so we're about halfway through now, and we've explored different colours of paper, really small twigs, how we can get those textures of scratchy marks. I quite like that big one at the bottom too. It's different ways of drawing. So this one was laying on thick with a bigger twig, and then adding detailing with something that was smaller over the top. Just playing with a few marks. And then this lovely little neutral design too. So what we're going to move on to is to actually put into practice. And these are actually Oregon peas. This is a picture from the allotment where I'm going them. And I think we'll use the white paper. You can see that. And I'm going to actually, for this one, I'm going to use a new one that I haven't before, just another little twig. And I am going to make it darker again. It's because I like that quite pigmented, really strong little colour. So I'm just mixing this up. This is like my brownie colour that I'm using. Again, just a little bit of paint in there, so it's nice consistency, nice and runny though. Oh, a new twig. This is even longer. I might even move further away. So I'm going to start off with the flower shape. So don't forget, we're exploring where we're holding our instrument, whatever it is that you choose to draw with. And then we're also looking at neutral colours, so greys and browns. And we're really observing, taking our time. Right, when I mix colours, we've talked about if it's darker, it'll be more towards the front of the page, it will look closer to the viewer. And it's always good when working like this. You might want to work on a couple at the same time, so you can add layers and revisit these as well. So you don't always have to work on just one image. So if it was a study maybe that I was doing for a big piece of work, I could draw one, and it allows that to have some drying time, and then maybe choose a different one and see how this piece is going to work. It's a really nice tip, especially if you're ever getting stuck on your work. If you're really struggling with how you want something to look, working on something, and it also gives you that comparison as well. So you can look at the left one and the right one and say, actually, that was better, or I like the way that that happened. I'll just wait for this to dry. And maybe on this one, start adding layers. It'd be interesting to see what you're doing, how you're tackling this. Are you using coffee? Is that what you've gone for? Are you using a twig? You just run outside quickly and then grab some. And some twigs are definitely better than others, I would say. Great for adding patterns as well. Go back to a little mini twig. Go back to this one on the left. I would say that I am quite impatient when it comes to waiting for things to dry too, because I just love to get on. It's too enthusiastic to actually get it done. It's quite nice how I've laid that colour down. The thicker one added some detail. There's an artist called Avis Newman, and he uses these quite loose strokes. And don't forget, you can share your work with us at Neuro Champions, and that's on Twitter or Instagram. Love to see your work. Again, you can dive from one to the other. And what sometimes you do is you learn from one side and think, oh, it's a little bit off. Accidental marks are amazing. There's also an artist that I can't remember the name, but if you look at them, if you look at drawing with nature and search for something like that, and what she did was she tied a load of pens to a willow tree, and as the tree blew, the pen's made marks on the paper. Really cool idea. I love the thought of something totally unconventional like that. Again, keep making decisions on where you want to place things. Keep swapping your twigs about, see what different marks you can get, and you can play with that. All really experimental stuff. But yeah, gone is the rule where you have to work on one thing at once. Love that dry line on this side as well. Again, just keep exploring. And then some little marks to the back. I can just get so carried away doing this because it's the excitement of not knowing what the tool's going to do, the stick's going to do. It's quite dark. So what's going through my head is, you know, how can I make these lines different? How can I make it look interesting? But definitely check out Avis Newman. Really reminds me a lot of the style. Cool. I'm quite happy with those where they are. Little twig drawings. So one thing that I haven't tackled yet is the black paper. Just because it's my favourite, I thought I'd save this till last. Again, you might want to work on 2 different papers, and don't worry if you haven't got black paper to hand. And we'll go for, this is a really nice simple image. Again, if you've not got any of these materials, please feel free to draw. Pick up on the hints and tips when you're ready and you've got these materials. So one of the most opaque colours for watercolour is white. So as long as you've got some white in your paint, then it will show up. I took a shine to this little twig. I really have. Oh, nice. Can you see that? Yeah. So just nice and slow. Carry that line through. It might help you to ground your image. And the great thing with paint is that you can always easily rectify the shapes by adding or taking away. especially with watercolour, using water is really a great way to manage errors. This leaf has got some striking patterns and textures on the leaf. I'm just using just plain white here. Again, just keeping it really neutral. Just allowing these found materials to have a life of their own. I don't want it to look like I've brushed it on. I don't want it to look like that. I want it to have its own style. I want it to look different so you can tell. And I love doing these sessions because it gives me a chance to play. I don't normally get a chance to do that with materials. You know, leave that for 1 second. I'm gonna do something quite radical with this one. I'm just gonna be so free and quick. So I'm just gonna make the quickest strokes that I can while observing, just really being so fast. See how that turns out. And see what it's like adding black or a darker colour. Don't know if you can pick that up there, but it's definitely got a nice effect. You're using the end of your paintbrush. Again, some lovely marks. The only thing is, I think with the stick, it tends to absorb quite a lot of the water or the paint, so it makes it quite easy. Whereas the plastic around that paintbrush is just drying out quite quickly. Again, that one's better than the other. Got its own properties. So a little bit looser, nice and fast drawing. I love that white on black. It's different take. Quite a simple image. And I thought these were lovely. These are raspberry leaves. So you can see those there. And you may not feel confident drawing straight away with paint, so you can add those shapes if you want a little bit of a guide, just to make it more accurate. Tonight's not really so much about accuracy, I would suppose. It's more about playfulness and it's enjoying using materials that you may not have done before. Okay. So I've made like quite a nice little grey here. I'm going to change this to a Tiny little stick. Again, don't forget to make it a little bit more realistic. You can always wobble your hand around. Some lovely little details into it. Might want to work on two like we have been doing. Don't know what this blue will show up like. I think the black paper is a little bit more restrictive in terms of what will show up, but as I say, if it's got some white in, it'll make it more opaque and it will stand out. It's almost like pastel colours. They're colouring in with pastel colours. I think someone's definitely going to have to give me a time check when it comes to the end of the session at 7, because I just get carried away with things like this. It's probably one of my favourite things to do. Just love the idea of it being free and being able to get your tools next to nothing. And as I say, you know, if you haven't got any paints, coffee is an excellent place to start. Or even if you have got some Posca pens are really good. They're quite the paint pens. Some fines in here. I've got right to do it. Add a bit of some hearts in the background. Just random. Just doing as I feel. Just channeling me in a raspberry bush. Falling apart. Quite nice. Still a fan of these ones though. So the last thing is the sycamore leaf I've brought. It's a lovely trick if you've got something that's quite veiny like this, is to use that pink solution that you've got on the back of it. I don't know if you've seen this before, and just dab some on. Obviously with the leaf being waterproof, you'll find it'll grip. But apply it, and then if you print it on top, really interesting little patterns that you get with them. Really lovely as just an abstract little piece, and then you can even go over this. So if we've got that as our leaf there, and we can add some more detail in with our little stick. So we know that's the bottom there, just to give it a little bit more depth. At the stem, right at the bottom. Detail. Maybe that you want to have a different colour. Oh, that's nice. So I've just took some light brown that I'd mixed before and just allowed that ink to blend into it. You don't even want to fill in some of the spaces. This is real groovy art. This is the things that you would find when you were studying painting more than anything. So these are great painting techniques. And if anyone is trying to get into uni or into college to do arts, definitely recommend that you explore some mark making tools and techniques. I showed you a book last time. It is called, where is it on my shelf? It's called 200 Things to Do to Get You into Art School. And it talks about mark making in there. It's a really useful book. I love that. Really easy, quick way of just using things that are totally natural. And this is what I love about nature. It's so surprising. You don't know what you're going to get. I'm just using leaf to add in some more details. Love it. I think we'll 10 minutes left. I think we've got enough time for let's try one more leaf print. It's pretty. Just going to use these little leaves again. Just I like using the underside of them just because the veins grow that way, so they're flat on the top. If you turn them over, they protrude out, so they are easier to draw this way. So if you're unsure of what something is, so I'm just again just loading that up. So if you're unsure of what the veins look like on the leaf, if you turn it over, you'll probably get a better idea. And then pop it on the page. Oh, so I like it might have been a little bit too much ink on there. See what this one's like. Oh, lovely. So you could even play around with how much ink or watercolour solution or paint solution you put on to actually see how it turns out. So the more that I put on this particular leaf, I'm finding the less defined it is. But actually the second go round seems to be really working well. And again, I'm going to get my stick and I'm going to add in some more detail. So looking at the leaf, where do I want to add it in? Nice thick lines. Again, totally different from the delicate leaf itself. It really changes up what it looks like. Keep having a play. And this is one of the nights where, as I say, I could just sit here and explore. Maybe have 6 or 7 different pieces going on. Just really looking at what will set this aside from a normal painting that I would tend to do, or what I would go to first. How do I add a bit more creativity into what I do. Great little fun art project. The only thing is, I do tend to bring in a lot of green flies. I don't know if you've noticed them climbing all around. Just going to add a little bit more into the background. I've got shapes I can make. And you could even add in some pencil or some really fine detail over. So I've got some coloured pencils here as well. So mix it up, try and add lots of details. It gives it depth. It looks really well polished. It gives it more interest by using lots of different You could easily fill a sketchbook just exploring things like this too. And you know, if it is for your sketchbook, then don't forget to actually write on them what it is that you did, how you actually got to the point of, you know, you might do a big final piece, or you might want to use these just for exploration. I think from tonight, I think this one's really my favourite, and I just explored really with quite light colours and real loose. This was the one where I had two either side, but I was also pulling it from the top of my pencil and my stick, just to help me be a little bit looser. I do quite like this where the lines aren't going all the way around. It's a nice little technique. This is our first one. Again, just really enjoy exploring and seeing what marks those could actually make. We've worked in a little bit of tiny detail, and then used a bigger one here to see what that would look like too. These are lovely little marks that you can create. Almost quite Japanese style, it reminds me, in terms of like cherry blossom or images like that. I really love the white on black too, and I think that it'd be interesting to carry on exploring this, and I probably will do after this session. I just really fell in love again with trying to find different tools and techniques to really explore nature. So don't forget that you can show us your work on @NeuroChampions, and that's on Twitter, and it's also on Instagram. I really love to see where you went foraging for your tools, and if you haven't yet, and you maybe wasn't sure this was happening tonight, then please share with us. This is really good if you've got a sycamore tree, definitely really effective for printing. Anything with really raised veins underneath will be useful. Probably less successful was the smaller wildflower leaf, but these are a really good way of actually adding to your design. You can also trace around these if you really want something to be accurate. It's very good to just trace around, or even you could just leave it there and paint around it, so you could get the outline of that, which is quite pretty too. So just explore, find new ways of doing things, really go for it. The more that you can find knocking about, the more interesting your work will be. And again, if you've got any questions, please add them to @NeuroChampions. And I will see you next week. And next week, what I thought we would do is really look at how we can build on those basics of flowers and leaves, but actually go further into trees, which are notoriously difficult, but not impossible if you've got the right setup. So thanks everybody for joining me. I've really enjoyed tonight. I might even stay on and carry on doing my own little bits here. But take care, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I'll see you next week. Thanks everyone. Bye.